In a village hidden among mist-covered mountains, there lived an old man named Etsu, known for his serene gaze and his slow walk, like the flow of the river. Each morning, before dawn, he would go out into the bamboo forest that surrounded the temple and sit in silence, his back straight and eyes closed, breathing in rhythm with the wind that whispered through the green stalks. The villagers, curious, would often ask him why he did this every day. He would simply smile and answer with a voice as gentle as the breeze, "Because the bamboo teaches me to wait and to let go." One afternoon, a young woman named Hannah arrived at the temple with tears in her eyes. Her father had fallen suddenly ill, and her heart was full of fear. Seeking comfort, she sat beside Etsu in the heart of the forest. "How can I ease this pain?" she asked, trembling. The old man said nothing at first. He simply offered her a cup of warm tea and pointed to the bamboo that bent with the wind without breaking. "Look closely," he whispered. "Two endures the storms, but it doesn't fight them. Simply breathes and waits." Hannah lowered her gaze, confused. "Is that enough to make everything better?" Etsu closed his eyes and murmured, "Nothing lasts forever. Not pain, not joy. Breathe. This too shall pass." In the days that followed, Hannah returned to the forest each morning, sitting beside Etsu in silence. At first, her mind was a whirlwind. Thoughts, fears, memories, all fighting for her attention. But Etsu never demanded anything from her. He simply offered presence, like the bamboo, steadfast and silent. "The mind is like water," he told her one day, as sunlight filtered through the leaves. "When it's agitated, you can't see clearly. But if you let it settle, the answer appears on its own." Hannah began to breathe more slowly. She closed her eyes and tried to feel the moment. Not yesterday's, not tomorrow's, just this one. One morning, while the dew still clung to the leaves, Etsu spoke without opening his eyes. "When sadness comes, don't reject it. Feel it. Invite it in for tea. Listen to it. And when it's ready, it will leave." Hannah looked at him, surprised. "And what if it never leaves?" The old man opened his eyes, deep as calm lakes, and said, "Nothing lasts, not even suffering. Breathe. Like the wind, everything passes." That day, for the first time, Hannah felt the pain in her chest grow lighter, not because it had vanished, but because she no longer fought against it. One afternoon, the sky darkened with heavy clouds and rain began to fall with force. Hannah and Etsu took shelter under a small wooden eave beside the temple. The sound of the rain striking the leaves was like a soft drum, marking the rhythm of time. "The storm will always come," Etsu said, watching the relentless fall of water. "What matters is not avoiding it, but knowing how to stand in the rain without drowning." Hannah looked at him, curious. "And how do you learn that?" The old man picked up a bamboo leaf that had fallen to the ground, soaked but untouched. "By observing, listening, breathing, understanding that this rain too will pass, just like the one before it." Hannah closed her eyes, letting a few drops wet her face. She no longer felt the urge to run, to hide, to escape the discomfort. Somehow, acceptance was teaching her how to be at peace even in the middle of the storm. "Aren't you afraid that everything passes?" she asked. "That the good things disappear too?" Etsu smiled, as if he had heard that question 1,000 years ago. "That's precisely why every moment must be savored. Because it is fleeting. Because it is not eternal. That's what makes it precious." And there, beneath the rain, Hannah understood for the first time that the problem wasn't that everything passes. The problem was having tried to hold on to what was already meant to go. Days passed, and Hannah no longer came to the forest with a desperate heart, but with a calm presence, as if something within her had begun to bloom quietly. Her father was still ill, but something had changed. She no longer experienced each moment as a threat, but as an opportunity to be fully there, by his side. One morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, Etsu placed a small stone in Hannah's palm. It was smooth and round, as if time itself had patiently polished it. "This stone spent centuries at the bottom of the river," he said. "The water didn't destroy it. It transformed it." Hannah looked at it in silence, feeling its weight and its calm. "What if life is like that river?" Etsu nodded. "It is. Sometimes it carries us away. Sometimes it polishes us. But if you don't resist, if you surrender to the flow, one day you'll discover that even pain has made you softer, wiser, more human." Hannah held the stone tightly and closed her eyes. Inside, she no longer felt that urgency to change what she couldn't control. For the first time, she was willing to let life do its work. And like a whisper that can only be heard with the soul, she remembered Etsu's words. "Breathe. Everything passes. Nothing lasts forever." And in that instant, she understood that this wasn't sadness. It was freedom. One night, the sky was clear and the full moon hung over the forest like a silent lantern. Hannah and Etsu walked slowly among the trees, their steps crunching on the damp earth, and the scent of freshly wet bamboo lingered in the air. "Do you remember your first visit to the forest?" Etsu asked without needing to look at her. Hannah nodded. "I was lost. I wanted quick answers, an immediate solution. I didn't understand anything." Etsu smiled. "And now, do you understand?" She stopped, looked up at the sky, and let the silence speak for her. Then, in a soft voice, she said, "Not like before. I don't need to understand everything anymore. It's enough just to be." The old man nodded with quiet satisfaction. "That is wisdom, to stop fighting life, to trust that even what you don't yet understand has its place in the great fabric of time." Hannah looked at her own hands, as if they too had changed. "Sometimes I still feel afraid. Sometimes it still hurts." "That will never completely go away," Etsu replied. "But now you know how to breathe within fear. You know how to sit beside pain without letting it consume you." An owl called in the distance. The forest breathed with them. "Pain may visit you," the master continued, "but you choose whether to make it a guest or the master of your house." Hannah closed her eyes. Inside, a new space was opening, like a night flower daring to bloom only when everything is still. Time continued its course, and with it, the seasons began to change. The bamboo leaves shifted from deep green to a paler shade, and the air grew cooler, announcing the arrival of autumn. Hannah now walked to the forest alone, sometimes before dawn, other times at sunset. The silence no longer weighed on her. She had made it her own. One day, she arrived at the spot where she used to sit with Etsu, but he wasn't there. In his place, a small wooden figure had been left among the roots of a tree. It was a sculpture of the old man, carved with tenderness, and beside it, a note written in steady calligraphy. "Nothing lasts forever, but what you've learned remains. When you breathe mindfully, I'll be there." Hannah felt a lump in her throat, not from sadness, but from gratitude. She didn't know if Etsu had left the temple, the world, or had simply chosen to live in another corner of the forest. But she understood now that his presence was part of the wind, the rustling leaves, the silence that embraced everything. She sat in her usual spot, closed her eyes and breathed. She felt the breeze on her skin, the earth beneath her feet, the distant sound of the river. And with every inhale, her thoughts faded like passing clouds. She didn't need to know where the master was, because in some way he was within her. The years passed as the seasons do, without warning, yet with certainty. Hannah, now with silver streaks in her hair, had become a cherished presence in the village. Many came to her, not for what she said, but for what she radiated, a peace that didn't depend on what was happening outside. One day, a young farmer came to her, his eyes filled with anguish. His mother was ill, and he didn't know how to bear the thought of losing her. "I feel like everything is falling apart," he said, his voice trembling. "I can't breathe." Hannah gently took his hands and led him to the forest. They sat in the same spot where, many years ago, she had once wept before Etsu. The cycle was returning. "When everything feels like too much," she said, "come back here. Sit, breathe. Don't try to control what's beyond your hands." "And what if the pain doesn't go away?" he asked. Hannah closed her eyes and remembered. Pain passes. Fear passes. Everything, even what you believe to be eternal, changes. Not because you force it to, but because that is the nature of all things. The young man lowered his gaze, and for a moment, the silence between them was more healing than any words. She smiled, knowing that true comfort doesn't lie in fixing the pain, but in not rejecting it. "Breathe," she said at last. "Everything passes. Nothing is forever. But what you learn here, that stays with you for life." That forest, witness to so many silences, still stood. The bamboo still bent with each wind, but it never broke. Life continued on, like a river that does not stop for anyone, yet gently touches all. Hannah no longer needed answers. Her life had become a teaching in itself. When people asked her how she had found peace, she didn't give long speeches. She simply took them to the forest and taught them how to breathe. And in that simple gesture, transformation happened. One day, without announcement or fanfare, Hannah did not return to the temple. The villagers searched for her, and in her place, they found a small bamboo leaf, carefully placed upon a stone. Beside it, an inscription carved with patience. "Where there is silence, there I am. Where you breathe, there I am. Everything passes, but the peace you find within yourself, that is eternal." From then on, whenever someone felt like their world was falling apart, they would go up into the forest, sit among the bamboo, close their eyes, and breathe. Because there, in the sigh of the wind, in the rustle of the leaves, in the calm that cannot be explained, the simplest and most powerful teaching still lived. Breathe, everything passes. Nothing is forever, and that too is peace.